welcome to the Goal Podcast, news and commentary from Gun Owners Action League, your leading voice for the Massachusetts gun owner.
I'm Jeff. Across the table is Garrett. This is our last episode of the year. I was looking at the calendar.
Yeah, it is. This one's going to release on the 20th. The next one won't be until January the 3rd. So this is it for 2024, folks.
And then on to 2025. Can't wait to see what happens.
Keep turning the crank.
We will be joined a little bit later by Jim Wallace, Executive Director of Gun Owners Action League, the big boss. To talk about Gun Control Advisory Board, some goal updates. But before we get to that, we need to do a deer season update, sir.
That's right.
Now,
that's right.
John's on the boards.
John is on the board, yeah.
And you are on the boards.
I'm on the board.
In spectacular fashion, by the way. So regale us with the tale of your...
with the tail of the... Yeah, okay.
Your 20-gauge deer slaughter.
So, yeah, I sent a text to Toby, said, hey, man, that gun that you sold me produced again. So it was fabulous, fabulous. So I got on the boards with my first ever double. Okay. Double, meaning that I took two deer basically in the same hunt within moments of one another. Because there were other people around. I knew I would have.
So you knocked the one down to get the other one to come out and see if it needed help?
So the positioning was fabulous. I was like, I don't know, 100 yards down this cart path. So it wasn't even like a hard walk. I'm walking down the path. I look down and the ground is like all busted up. I'm like, there's something going on.
Something's
here. This is a highway right here. There's a rock wall along the side of the path. So I'm like, okay, well, come and sit for a few minutes. And I sat there, maybe 20 minutes, and even texted with you a little.
Yeah, no, you had sent me a text, and then all of a sudden I didn't hear back from you for a little bit.
Texted with you for a little bit, complaining about how freaking cold it was outside.
It's cold, this sucks. It's miserable, why do we do this?
Yeah, right, what am I doing here? And then, not 5 minutes later, two of them came walking out of the woods on the other side of the cart path, like right towards me at a walk, which is kind of unusual. When I see them, usually on the hoof moving. But yeah, it was the first one. She was walking towards me, and you know how this goes. When you see him, you're like, oh God, I got to get the gun up. I got to get the safety off without spooking them. And so I managed to do that and then get the glass on her. And I know it was a good shot. I knew I had a good shot because I had that extra half a second to go.
Yep.
Okay. Now we'll tap. And so it wasn't like a reactive thing, but still at the last split second before you pull the shot, you're like, what's going to happen?
Don't screw it up.
Well, you wonder to yourself, what's going to happen? Is it going to buck? Is it going to take off running the other direction? Is it going to start running? What's going to happen, right? What's going to happen after I let the shot go? So I let the shot go, and I'm still looking through the glass. And, of course, this all happens within the space of 2 or 3 seconds. But let the shot off, and she turns and looks at me. And for that first split second, I was like, you got to be freaking kidding me. She's 40 yards away. I did not, I was like, I'm hanging up my gun if I miss this shot. And then she kept walking in the direction that she was heading, but she was doing the tiptoe thing. When you get up in the morning, you're really sore and you're like, oh God. So I was like, okay, that was a good shot. I knew that was a solid shot. She actually ended up walking out of my sight. But I was like, I know that's a good shot. She's going to, just let her do her thing. And then so I concentrated on her companion, who didn't bail out, but started moving in the other direction. And so I had a good shot on that one going the other direction. The first one walked up the hill, maybe, 30 yards, went around this log fall that was up there and laid down. The second one headed up to my left, maybe 30 yards, laid down against a tree, and they both expired within, 30 yards of me, within minutes of each other. And it was like, I think my heart finally stopped pounding last Thursday.
Then you got a lot of work. That's a lot of cleanup.
It's a lot of cleaning, and I had a lot of people around because we hunt as a group. So I knew that I had help, and they're really helpful people, and the people knowledgeable, and they're really really cool people.
It's a labor of love.
Yeah. So I had help.
But you were telling me before we started recording that you conned a youth into field dressing one of your deer for you. How dare you?
Well, yeah, my good friend's 15-year-old was out with us, and he cleaned out one of the doe for me. So that was cool. So now we got a freezer full of meat. Other people have meat who didn't shoot a deer this year. And that's okay. That's how it works. Everybody in the group gets meat, whether or not you actually shoot it.
Your friend's kid, it's up to you if you want to share names, but got their first deer.
Yeah.
First deer ever.
Yeah.
For deer camp.
Very proud. That was a very awesome moment. Yeah. Yeah. First deer ever. So congratulations.
That's awesome, man. It sounds like you had a great time.
It was.
Glad it produced.
My first double ever. It was really, really awesome.
So are you saying that's your luck, or is it my luck of the scope that I put on, and then you were texting me and I brought the deer for you?
Hey, you know what?
Just pat myself on the back for that one.
Jeff, you can get, you know what? As long as I'll tell you, my friend's daughter, who's 13 years old, drew a little picture of a deer, and she told me to rub it all over myself, and I did that. So maybe she's got something to do with it too.
Superstitions are only crazy if they don't work. They're only crazy if they don't work.
That's right.
So you need to save that thing and put it under your cap for next season.
That's right. Let's keep the streak going.
But congratulations, man. That's really awesome.
Thank you. Big pile of meat in the freezer, which is what it's all about. Really awesome. Really cool. What's going on in the news world?
Well, so we had a couple of news updates. So I saw this one, and I just figured I'd add it in because of the name. David Hogg. Yes, that one.
Yes, that David.
The one who got the free ticket to Harvard for screaming and shouting nonsense is running for the vice chair of the Democratic National Committee.
God. Well, you know what? It kind of figures. He's always been kind of an accolade hunter, and that's kind of his deal, and whatever.
Kind of apropos to that demographic. He's doing the same thing that a lot of them do. Everything is everyone else's fault, and only if I were the supreme leader, then we would get the utopian pipe dream. So
put me in charge, and I'll fix the whole thing.
Yep. At whatever age he happens to be now.
Oh yeah. Oi. Joe Biden, can we still actually call him president at this point? I mean,
by title.
Yeah.
Not by action or performance, maybe.
I guess constitutionally he's still a president. But anyway, as the lamest lame duck president ever, he's done some new gun control rules.
Yeah, so Department of Justice just did a press release last week or a week ago, back on the 4th. Mm-hmm. They are saying that now, following the language of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, they are now going to allow FFLs to use the NICS system to run background checks for their own purposes.
Now,
so previously,
yeah. So you buy a gun, you as a customer go into an FFL, you buy a gun, the FFL runs a NICS background check on you on the computer. But you're saying it's more than that now.
Well, so previously they were restricted. So they said, you can only use this system for firearms transactions.
Yeah.
But now they're saying it's opened up to FFLs for running their own background checks on people who are or would be eligible or who are eligible employees. Ooh. So it's saying, and they defined an employee as a person who has or may have an opportunity to access firearms or ammunition because of the person's duties as an employee of an FFL, regardless of whether or not their duties actually include actual transfer or handling of firearms or ammunition. So anybody
I'm with that.
Anybody that's a prospective employee of that FFL, they can now run NICS checks on.
That sounds a little bit like a privacy thing, but not only that, I haven't had a lot of time to think about it, but it sounds a little bit like it goes against the spirit of the law that NICS is founded on. You don't have to have a NICS background check to own a gun, to possess a gun, to carry a gun, to any of those things in free states. You have to have a NICS check to buy a gun. That's what the system is in place for.
But now this opens up, and granted, I mean, I'm going to say 99.999% of FFLs are totally, totally fine.
Of course. And I
don't suspect anybody to abuse it.
Yeah. Just because it's not going to be a problem doesn't mean it's cool.
This is opening up the door for any FFL anywhere in the country to go, well, I can call this person an eligible employee. Why don't I just run a NICS check on my neighbor? Why don't I run a NICS check on this lady from work? Why don't I run a NICS check on this other person? Like,
it sounds like, maybe not, maybe not quite as blatant as that, because I assume that the people still have to fill out the form and put their particulars and all that stuff in there. But it does open up an avenue for abuse, it seems to me.
But, never going to miss an opportunity to expand the realm of gun control.
Well, when it comes to everybody else, though. When it comes to his own family, though, he doesn't seem to have a problem with gun crimes at all. Joe Biden pardons Hunter Biden for his gun crimes. Let's see. Where's the quote? Without aggravating factors like use in a crime, multiple purchases, or buying weapons, a straw purchaser, people are almost never brought to trial on felony charges solely for how they filled out a gun form. That may be true. And to that, I say, if people are never, charged for it, then why the hell is it a law? That's my answer to that rationale.
I mean, that's a fair question.
Right? If it, you can't just hand wave it away and say, well, nobody else is prosecuted under it. Well, I don't care. They can be prosecuted under it and they don't get pardons.
And I would say, not necessarily people who make an honest and genuine mistake, but someone who...
But he lied about it.
Someone who wrote something on there with the intention of being deceptive.
Yes. Yeah, right. Not like I misspelled my thing or put the wrong country down or something like that. People don't get prosecuted for that, and they shouldn't. Okay. But, yeah. So Joe Biden is on record saying, from the day I took office, I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision-making, and I kept my word even as I watched my son being selectively and unfairly prosecuted.
But,
yeah, here's the truth. I believe in the justice system, but as I've wrestled with this, I also believe raw politics has infected this process and it led to a miscarriage of justice. And once I made this decision this weekend, there's no sense in delaying it further. So this is his rationale for pardoning Hunter Biden for basically the gun charges, right? Saying that Hunter Biden is unfairly being, selectively singled out because he's Biden's kid for the gun charges. That being the case, why such a blanket pardon for everything for the last 10 years? Why not just pardon him for the gun crimes and end it there? Why write a pardon that says, thou art pardoned for everything that may or may not have happened since 2014?
Yeah. So the terms of the pardon, it says a full and unconditional pardon for those offenses against the United States which he has committed or may have committed or taken part in during the period from January 1st, 2014 through December 1st, 2024, including but not limited to all offenses charged or prosecuted by Special Counsel David C. Weiss.
Yeah, we could discover next week that he committed a murder
on Thanksgiving, right before that.
Yeah, and he's got a pardon for it. He's got a retroactive pardon for anything that may or may not have happened regarding the Burisma thing. The whole cash for access thing, which whatever, that's outside the scope of this podcast, but still, it's a blanket pardon for everything and anything.
Yeah, there has been some criticism and there's certainly criticism in a partisan fashion, but there's also been criticism in a bipartisan fashion, because in his whole thing, he says that he made this decision not only as the president, but as a father. And so essentially what he has said is, my son is immune from criminal prosecution for a period of a decade. Interestingly enough, that press release was released before midnight of December 1st, 2024. So technically he had about a handful of hours to commit whatever crime he wanted with complete immunity.
Well, that's it. This is on the heels of this, Joe Biden, in a flurry of pardons, pardoned something like 1,500 people, including the Kids for Cash judge.
Yeah, the one that was imprisoning people for pay.
Right. let that guy off the hook, among other like really questionable things. And then, people started like asking, like even the mainstream media is like, you sure about that? And so come to find out that it was based on criteria, and one of the talking heads, one of the political talking heads was like, well, he didn't really consider the specifics of each case. I'm like, well, you think? Of course he didn't.
Don't you think that the specifics of the case are right?
You don't think that's relevant?
Somewhat relevant to just saying that we're going to excuse all the things that you've done.
Well, I mean, it's the last vestige of the divine right of kings, right? They say that the president having the power is supposed to be a check on all of this. And in general, I don't have all that much of a problem with it. The fewer people that get hung up by the government, the better as far as I'm concerned. But at least be a little conscientious about it. It is obvious to me that this had nothing to do with the miscarriage of justice and everything about getting his kid off the hook for what he did. So,
Well, to that I would say, then what's the point of a judicial system? Well, if the person on high can say this is what we will and will not allow to go through the judicial system to the extent of reversing judicial orders, then what's the point of the judicial order in the first place? But that political philosophy and
that's outside the scope of this here.
Anyway, one person that he's not going to have to pardon,
thankfully,
is Daniel Penny.
Right.
That case just wrapped up. While not necessarily a Second Amendment case per se, it was a self-defense and defense of others issue, and it's kind of indicative of how some people view the idea of self-defense in the aggregate.
Yeah. So there's no gun involved. This is not a gun law thing. Nobody shot anybody. This was the case out of New York where Daniel Penny, former Marine, I believe, intervened basically on behalf of himself and other people in the subway car where an individual with, apparent mental illness issues was basically threatening to kill people. And trying to make good on it. So Daniel Penny, intervened, and unfortunately, the individual during the scuffle ended up dead.
Yeah, but back on Monday, December 9th, Penny was found not guilty of criminally negligent homicide in the death of Jordan Neely on a New York City subway car in 2023. He was originally charged with 2 crimes, second-degree manslaughter, and then as a secondary charge, criminally negligent homicide.
Yeah. The way this played out was a little bit...
So
go ahead.
So second-degree manslaughter. So he's essentially being charged with 2 different crimes for one action.
Yeah.
And they're
which is not unusual.
They're done in a way so essentially if he gets acquitted of one, he can still be convicted of the other.
Right. They're stacking it up against him so that it can fall through, right? This one's going to acquit, it falls down to the next one. It's like, well, okay, we can get him on that one.
Right. So I looked into it a little bit. So second-degree manslaughter in the state of New York is saying that the defendant recklessly caused the death of another person, where criminally negligent homicide says that the defendant failed to perceive a substantial risk that their actions would result in death. Now, what really made this case interesting from a judicial standpoint was the Friday before the acquittal, with the judge's approval, the state dismissed the manslaughter charge after jurors who were already deliberating said they couldn't come to a unanimous decision.
So they hung up. They went to the judge and said, we're hung, we can't do anything. So the prosecution said, we have a motion to dismiss that charge.
They withdrew the charge and said, now we only want you to consider the other charge.
The problem with that, however...
It seems a little... unfair.
It seems like a little game playing because it smelled to the outsider that I am like the judge was trying to set things up to bias things in favor of some kind of a conviction.
Fortunately, he was acquitted of everything as far as I know now. Like he went and attended the Army-Navy football game with James Vance, and he should be all set, should be fine.
Yeah.
It
seemed pretty clearly a self-defense case to me. Now, we can talk all day long about whether or not we or I or you or, would have individually gotten involved or what we would have done in that particular circumstance. We don't have all the facts. But, it was an imminent, incredible threat against people's lives. Sounds like self-defense to me.
Yeah, I mean, the people in the subway car all testified that he did what they felt was the right thing, as unfortunate as the end result was.
Yeah, it was terrible. But anyway, so Daniel Penny's been acquitted.
So apparently self-defense is still technically a thing in New York, as much as they don't want it to be.
As much as they tried to stack the deck against it. Couple of not great news updates from Supreme Court. Wilson v. Hawaii has been denied cert. Unfortunately, this is the... Well, okay, so it was denied cert, but we got a statement from Clarence Thomas and Justice Alito that basically said, yeah, because of this procedural reason, we agree with it being denied cert, but it's pretty clear here that Hawaii screwed up and they need to be taken to task about it. So the brief history, we talked about this. This is the Spirit of Aloha case, right? This is that nonsense where Hawaii Supreme Judicial Court said that the Second Amendment, doesn't comport with the spirit of Aloha, and there's no right to carry firearms in Hawaii because, I don't know, it had to do with like leis and hibiscus flowers and pineapple, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, but it's all the way up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court looked at it and denied certiorari, which means they're not going to listen to it. The procedural reason for that had to do with the fact that I believe there's still a trespassing charge pending in the case. And the Supreme Court's like, no, we don't get involved in things on an interlocutory fashion.
Yeah, they don't step in the middle while things are going on. That's not their role.
Right. So that was basically the rationale. But Thomas and Alito had some interesting things to say about it.
Thomas wrote that we singled out Hawaii's licensing regime as analogous to the New York regime we held unconstitutional, referencing the Bruin case.
Yep.
He says, we explain the states cannot condition an individual's exercise of his Second Amendment rights on a showing of special need. Yet the Hawaii Supreme Court ignored our holding. That conclusion contravenes the settled principle that Americans need not engage in empty formalities before they can invoke their constitutional rights, and it wrongly reduces the Second Amendment to a second-class right. Although the interlocutory posture of the petition weighs against correcting this error now, I would grant certiorari in an appropriate case to reaffirm that the Second Amendment warrants the same respect as any other constitutional right.
That pretty clearly says that,
I got to say, I very much enjoy Thomas's writing.
You're right. It's great. So, like, on technical grounds, because of the way that we structure things, we're not going to accept this case. However,
for all the people that talk about a rogue Supreme Court.
Yeah, right. This is proof that it's not a rogue Supreme Court. If it was, they'd be taking stuff like this all day long and slapping it down. And so as much as I don't like it, I think they appropriately denied cert in this case, at least until it's resolved. The trespassing case resolved. Once everything is settled and all the pieces have fallen, then I'd like to see this case or a case like it be sent back up and handled, because what Hawaii did is absolute nonsense.
There are state-level organizations that are filing lawsuits regarding licensing regimes that very much would like the support to get all the way to the Supreme Court.
I don't know if Massachusetts has anything analogous to the spirit of Aloha. I don't know.
I've got that sniffle out.
Snope v. Brown. It's Snope v. Brown.
Talk about taking the air out of your sails.
Seriously.
So excited for this case.
On December the 6th, I think, it was rescheduled. What does that mean? It means that the Supreme Court, on the very edge of deciding whether or not to grant cert to the case, decided instead to reschedule it.
So this is the Maryland assault weapons ban case about whether or not an assault weapons ban, and we'll put the air quotes around that, is constitutional or not. This was supposed to be scheduled for conference on
the 13th or something like that.
On Friday, December 13th, and we were supposed to know about it this past Monday, December 16th.
Yeah.
And I, immediately refresh.
Yeah. Watch. And you're like,
and the thing comes out, and I started reading through, and I went through the list 3, 4, 5 times and didn't see it.
What the hell?
Texted you, texted Mike, what the hell? What's going on?
Yep. Rescheduled. So we did say that this was a possibility. They could either grant cert, deny cert, or kick the can down the road. What they decided to do essentially was kick the can down the road. This does not mean that the case is dead. They could be holding it to, and this is tea leaves. We have no idea. They could be holding it because there are other cases coming up that kind of align with it, like the magazine ban case is coming up, and then there's another one, Jennings, I think, is coming up. So there's other cases that are coming up that could be aligned with this one and taken, as a group. So it doesn't mean that Snope v. Brown is dead. It just means
quite the opposite.
Yeah,
because they could have, if they wanted it dead, they could have just denied certain. That would have been the end of it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of in a holding pattern, circling the airport, waiting for So it's unfortunate. I would have liked to have seen him take it so that we could hear the arguments and so forth. But it is what it is. There's any number of reasons why they could have rescheduled it, but they did, and so that's where we are. All right, so joining us this evening, we've got Jim Wallace, Executive Director, Gun Owners Action. What is that look on your face? Jim Wallace, Executive Director, Gun Owners Action. How's it going, Jim?
Yeah, it's a good thing we're not on YouTube, right?
Yeah, the people out in listening land are going to miss that.
Oh, my Lord.
What is new? How's your December going?
Well, it's we're a little busy. So
I guess so.
The Goal office, we got a new employee starting, I think, Thursday. We have a part-time membership person starting, which is going to be awesome. 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And she's actually the president of a gun club. So she's not a stranger to Goal. And she's it was funny because when we were talking to her about the position, we're caught in that matrix between the generation that wants everything on the phone and the generation that doesn't even know what the phone is. and talking to Angie and I, she goes, well, the good thing is I speak old guy. And I'm like, sweet, you're hired.
Right on.
Excuse me, I speak jive.
She's got the ancient language of the...
That's right. Well,
that's good.
That's perfect.
This guy's tablet has a hammer and chisel.
So her role there is as a membership kind of assistant coordinator person who's going to be. What is she doing? She's answering phones. She's handling membership requests. What's her role there?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Your job is yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the things too is to have somebody, not full time, but there for members who have membership questions, or we've had issues with our system where people actually set up 3 memberships because they can't log in. So things like when people call in and say, hey, I just I'm having trouble, or I want to check, she can say, well, let me pull up your memberships. Oh, looks like you got 3. Let's take care of that right now, kind of thing. Or I need a membership card, or all of that stuff.
Yeah, sure.
That takes up a lot of Angie's time, and we need to retask Angie to do other things as we get bigger and stronger here. So it's going to be kind of interesting. 2025 is going to look a little different for Goals. So we'll talk about that as we move forward. So
at the appropriate time. Yes, sir. Excellent.
As we're headquartered in Jackman, Maine.
324 days. So Gold just actually a few days ago, a couple weeks back now, just had its 50th anniversary. It's official 50th anniversary. What was it, November 27th?
7th, I think. Yeah. 50 years. Man. Yeah, 50 years. And that was back when they beat question 5 without the advantage of the internet or social media or cell phones.
Yep.
They beat back a ballot question to literally ban handguns in the state of Massachusetts.
Yeah, that was an all-out ban. 1973, They tried that. Yeah.
Yeah, so they realized back then that they probably would need some sort of organization in Massachusetts.
Like, hey, things are getting a little crazy here.
Yeah. So, it's pretty wild. I mean, the ride we've been through as an organization, and certainly the staff over the years, it's been quite a ride. And, we're very thankful for all the people who support us, because we couldn't do what we do without their support. So another interesting dynamic, which we're seeing really come forward after COVID, is people aren't joiners anymore. They have no problem donating money. They just don't want to be a member. They don't want to be bothered with it. They just, want the information. Okay, what's going on? What do I need to do? And here, if you need some money to fight something, here you go.
Yeah.
So that's something that I've been talking to my colleagues around about nationwide. And it's something that we're probably going to have to start looking at, in the next 10 or 20 years as to whether membership organizations as membership organizations can even sustain themselves. It's not a financial issue because, like I said, people are very generous, but to base an organization on membership is going to be questionable. I mean, you look what happened to all the fraternal organizations, in the last 15, 20 years.
Sure.
It's just not how people socialize anymore. And, you look at the average gun club. I mean, there's plenty of members, but, try to get somebody to volunteer for the board of directors.
Right. And show up for meetings and take care. Yeah, right. Their membership tends to be, the privilege of coming and shooting, not being part of the group. And, that's fine for them. But I think you're kind of right. People don't mind writing checks. They don't mind sending money, and they don't mind being supportive on social medias to various degrees and so forth. People don't want to be card carrying members of things, it seems.
No, there's not enough slots in their wallet. So they have to be careful about how many cards they get. But then on the other hand, it's funny too, how many people still, I didn't get a membership card. Where's my membership card? And it's so important to them to have a membership card. It's kind of funny. It's a complete generational thing where anybody under 40 is like, why'd you send me this thing?
Yeah,
I don't want
this.
No.
Nonsense in my wallet.
I'll put it in my phone wallet if you have it in a digital, but other than that, I don't want to do the damn thing. Yeah.
Man. So, well, the times they are changing, right?
Yeah. It's just we are adapting to it, and I think so far we're doing a good job adapting to it. And we're in a lot of different platforms, and we're getting even better at that. So, I mean, this is one of them, right? The podcast, which you guys do a great job at, and get the message out there, and we know people are listening because we hear about it all the time.
Yeah.
So, but we got to reach all those gun owners that aren't members. Either really of a active member of a club or a member of Goal. We got 650,000 people out there that we have to reach out to in some fashion. And it makes it difficult because most of the social media platforms won't let us advertise. Most of the billboard companies won't let us advertise. Radio stations won't take our money. So it makes it very difficult to get out there. We're an ostracized community, if you will, of people that they just don't want to admit are even there. So
when you're one of the unwashed.
Yeah. So it's like when people say, "Oh, Jim, I didn't see you standing there." Really? You need to go to the doctor. You missed me? Wow. Okay. Something's going on there. There's glaucoma and then there's damn.
Well, so you wear many hats. Obviously, you're the boss man over at Gold, executive director. You've also board member at NRA for a while now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's getting interesting. That's getting interesting for sure. The court case is finished. The judge, judge made his ruling a few months ago or whatever it was, and then the judge just issued his orders about what we have to do as an organization for the NRA to keep going. And it's really nothing big.
So there was no people were speculating, they're going to put an overseer in there. They're going to dissolve they're going to throw everybody out and start over again. So it didn't end up being anything like that.
No, the judge was pretty clear. He was very rational from the beginning that, listen, there's nothing here that rises to the level of dissolving the NRA or putting in state oversight. We know who the bad characters are, and they're gone, and they have to repay the NRA. I think Wayne LaPierre, he's got to repay the NRA like $4.5 million. If we ever see that money, that's one thing.
Probably not even going to make a dent.
Woody Phillips, no. And the sad thing is, it's the attorney that the Special Litigation Commission has, for the NRA has authority over, and we spent $200 million on this guy for what?
Ow!
God, $200 million in 5 years, and he hasn't won a thing. So it's So there are some massive changes underway at the NRA. We started those last year at the annual meeting. We have a good vice president and second vice president. We hired a really good guy to take Wayne's position, and he's already have made drastic changes. He literally took a red eye home from that meeting in May and started going to work right away.
Good.
And the old cabal, the old guard, is very upset with him.
Good.
He started getting rid of people, and they've tried several times to throw a monkey wrench in it. That, well, he shouldn't have done this without our okay, and this and that. It's like, well, no, you gave the authority to the EVP, and he's doing what he needs to do. So I would look forward to this coming April's annual meeting, because if the groundwork that a lot of us patriots, we call ourselves the Patriots group,
nice.
that laid the foundation last May, if it's going to be a fight, but if we get our way this April, we're going to clean house entirely, and we'll be what we call NRA 2.0.
Nice.
Pretty cool.
Well, it's a long road ahead, but the road is there. You know the direction you need to go in. So now it's just a matter of one foot in front of the other and working towards that end result.
Yeah. I mean, turns out the cleaning house is a good thing.
Yep. Absolutely.
And like you said, we're looking at as the generations change and how people interact with organizations and how people view organizations. And, it's an opportunity, as much as it's a challenge, it's an opportunity to reimagine how the NRA is going to function going forward into the next however long.
Off into the future, man. Yeah.
Off into the future, it's interesting because the guy that we hired as the EVP, he had been handling the publications division for the NRA for about 10 or 12 years. Very professional guy. He cut his teeth working for, remember what were they called? Peterson, like Outdoor Life magazine.
Oh, yeah.
Card and Track or whatever it is. So he knew the ins and outs. And the interesting thing now is, as EVP, he has to be out from behind the desk and in front of the camera. And he did a few interviews, like one with Kim Edwards. He wanted to be an EVP that got out there and actually was talking to the Second Amendment media.
And he got on Kim Edwards pretty quick, too, as I recall.
He did. But as soon as that happened, a bunch of us on the board were like, okay, we need to get him some training to be in front of the camera this time. Because he looked like Herman Munster back there going,
the spirit is willing, and we're thrilled about that. But we got to get this guy some new suits.
So, okay. So, I mean, one of our fellow patriots, Amanda Suffolk, you guys know her well.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
And she does a lot of that. She goes, I put in a call to Doug. I'm going to start doing some training with her right away.
Nice.
Yeah, well, that's a skill. That is very much a skill to be able to speak off the cuff, do it on camera, and do it efficiently and well.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I spoke at UMass Amherst like 3 weeks ago, and I was telling the students, it was a political science class, and I said, listen, when I started 30 years ago, even before I worked for Gold, you put me in front of 10 people, I'd be like, and now my wife's, don't give him a microphone. Oh, you gave him a microphone. Don't do that.
You can hear the eye roll.
Yeah, exactly.
That clicking sound is Holly's eyes rolling back in her head.
That was like the first time I spoke at the Gun Rights Policy Conference. And the woman said, okay, you got 5 minutes. I'm like, yeah, good luck with that. That's not happening.
For the intro?
5 minutes. So that's an NRA hat. You wear other hats like the State SEAL Commission. I guess we can skip on that one for now.
Yeah, they certainly did. 2.5 years, and we never accomplished a damn thing. So I never had worked with a group of people that if you were to give a sociology class on how not to accomplish a task, that would be the class right there. So,
oh man, a lot of navel gazing. Anyway, but the hat that you're wearing that we asked you to come on tonight specifically for was for the reconstituted Gun Control Advisory Board, or now as it's now called under Chapter 135, the Firearms Control Advisory Board.
Yeah.
So you have a seat on that, along with there's a Chief Glidden's on there. There's a
he represents the Mass Chiefs.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's what is it? 6 or 8 people on this board. You know what? Rather than me stepping over it, why don't you give us a little bit of background on what used to be the GCAB, its purpose, its impetus. You know, what does it do, and then I guess we can get into what it's doing now.
Yeah, the GCAB originally came from the 1998 Gun Control Act, which was Chapter 150, and the initial purpose was to assist the Secretary of Public Safety in basically making that law work, implementing, creating regulations that needed to be created. And the anti-civil rights groups tried to take advantage of it and say, okay, we're going to do this policy, we're going to do this policy, we're going to ban this, we're going to ban that. And Chief Glidden and the rest of the board said, no, that's not our purpose, and that's not what we're going to do. So they, in the long run, what it turned out to be was just looking at the testing records for handguns that had been submitted for approval. You know, so we'd meet 3 times a year, or whatever it was, and if there were new testing stuff, we'd go over it and approve or deny, you know, depending upon what the process was. This new board has quite a bit more, not really authority, but expanded in their task.
Yeah.
There's several rosters now that we have to deal with, but also really is trying to figure out a way to make this thing work. And I missed the first meeting, which was purely administrative.
Yeah.
Nothing actually took place. I was in Maine with some fellow cohorts that one of them was the luckiest damn deer hunter I ever saw in my life.
You know, yeah.
And we had to drag a deer maybe 18 inches to the truck.
All the way up to the bed of the truck. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had to drag it off of the road to clean it, and then drag it back onto the road to put it on the truck.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, my wife and I were at a spice show, and I totally didn't even think about it. She crawled in the back of the truck to get a couple of boxes of spices, came out with deer blood all over her pants. And I'm like, it's all right, honey. Nobody will even notice. Don't worry about a thing. So
that's Jeff's fault. You're in trouble next time you see.
I bad.
The same guy while we're in a gravel pit going, why is there a chicken in Maine? You know, that's called the grouse, Jeff. Grouse.
Shoot it.
Yeah,
Shoot it. It's a grouse.
But,
I've never seen one before.
Yeah. No, it was funny.
And I flushed it for John.
That's right. Yeah. John missed it because he had his safety on, right? So at least that's what he tried to tell us.
Oh, God.
Anyway.
All right. Back on
so the second meeting I attended, what was that? Last Friday before, whatever it was. And it was interesting because they had basically 2 things on the agenda. One was the new long gun roster, which is really the firearms roster, but now long guns are included. And then the new roster, which is the roster of banned assault weapons. Oof. So the long gun roster, or what is the firearms roster, which used to be the handgun roster, if you can follow that tortured path, is very problematic because all the testing requirements are not conducive to long guns. It's just not the way they're set up.
Completely.
You know, especially accuracy tests for 3-inch barrel. Boy, talk about a short barrel rifle, huh? 3-inch. Woo! You know, drop tests. You know, you have to load and and drop a rifle, 6 different ways to Sunday and see if it goes off. I want to see the guy who's going to drop the 50 BMG to see if that's going to go off in a testing lab. So the rifles and shotguns just aren't meant to do what they require handguns to do.
Yeah.
So, and they were trying to find a kind of a tortured path to get around, including long guns. And I will tell you, listen, everybody in the room is very amiable. The matter of fact, the appointee from the Senate president, he's a retired judge and he's a gun owner. So, and I know who he is and I know what club he belongs to. The state police officers are totally confused and Chief Glidden is trying to help out. I mean, even the person, his name is Ryan from the AG's office, very easy to talk to. And every single person in that room is completely perplexed about this law like we are.
Yeah.
So they were trying to figure out a way, okay, is there a way that we really don't have to include long guns in this roster? And after an hour of discussion, I said, listen, folks, if you think you're going to find a path around this, then our folks are going to expect you to do that with every piece of this bill. So don't set a precedence by bending the law. And the three attorneys in the room were like, you can't anyway. You can't get around that term, firearms.
Yeah. The law is the law. You know, for worse or for worse, that's the way they wrote the piece of crap. And, you know, you can't, an administrative agency just doesn't have the authority to go.
Well, this is their bed and they need to lay in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And as much as it, sucks for us in the meantime until it gets hashed out in court, they can't, you're right. They can't just rewrite it.
So after over an hour of discussing that, Michaela Dunn, who's now the chair, and she's very professional, very good egg. She said, okay, well, let's just get on to the easy one, the banned roster of assault weapons. And I kind of sat back in my chair and said, where's my popcorn? This should be interesting.
That's not the easy one.
they were trying to figure out, okay, how do we get this started? There was a little conversation. And finally, a few of them said, well, you know what? Let's just start with the enumerated guns, and then later we can figure out where we're going to go from there. And I said, whoa. Wait a minute. No. And they're like, what? And I said, you cannot put up a partial banned roster. This isn't like the approved rosters where you can add guns that are approved.
Right.
You're talking about a banned roster. So if you put out a roster and it only has those, 11 guns or whatever they are, the enumerated guns, everybody's going to say, oh, cool, the Tavor's not on there. I'm going to go buy one now. And the retailer's like, oh, yeah, I guess I can sell it. It's not on the roster.
Not banned.
And then a few were like, well, yeah, but people should understand the law. No. We don't understand the law. The ones that
don't understand the law.
People that wrote the goddamn thing don't understand the law.
So much for being the easy one, because, I pretty much convinced them, listen, if you put up a roster, that's the law in their eyes.
That's like a really good point. I can add, honestly, I can see from the perspective of other board members why they wouldn't immediately come to that conclusion, like you did. But you're absolutely right. If I see a list of banned stuff and there's something that I want that's not on it, it's not banned. And then what? Next Tuesday, they're going to decide to update the list with what I just bought?
Because they need to keep in mind, it's not only what the list says, it's what the list doesn't say.
Right.
It cuts both ways.
Exactly.
So if you purchase and the retailer says, oh, I guess I can sell it to you, and in 3 months you expand on that roster and make it illegal, what are you going to do then?
Where does that leave you?
So, But anyway, it's in the law. I don't know how the heck they're going to implement it. The other thing with long guns, too, that I brought up, which there's no way we had time to even talk about it, is the target roster we passed. Gosh, when did we pass that? 2004, maybe? We have a roster of handguns that doesn't have to go through the testing because they're specifically manufactured, sold, and marketing for target shooting or Olympic shooting.
Yeah.
Well, now that roster will include long guns. So the interesting thing, too, is that under the new law, anyone can petition the secretary to add or subtract guns from these rosters. That in itself is going to be problematic.
Oh, my God.
So, but anybody that wants to can, if they find a long gun, rifle or shotgun, which I've done a little research and there's plenty out there, as long as they're not marketed for any other purpose other than target shooting or competition, so they can actually ask that they be put on the target roster. And it's going to be very interesting to see if somebody comes up with a target or competition AR, right? So,
hey, we're only marketing it for target shooting.
It's only marketed for 3-gun competition. It's a target gun. So, what's going to happen there? The Ruger 1022 competition guns which are very high end for a 22.
Yeah.
And everybody was concerned because they have the thumb hole and they have a detachable magazine. Now it's not center fire. Right. That's kind of a wishy thing right there, but those could be put on the target roster for sure. I mean, it's obvious what they're designed and marketed for. So,
yeah.
So there's a lot going on. A little bit of discussion about the black powder stuff, which everybody's still confused about. And on the Goal website, we have 3 categories of muzzleloaders, and we've kind of taken some flack at that.
Yeah.
But we made category number 2 because we really weren't sure what they're going to do with the inlines that use a shotgun primer, because that's modern ammunition. Because
it's a component of modern ammunition. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people say, "Oh, Jim, they're not going to do anything with that. Come on. There's only 2. There's always been 2. So at the meeting, when I asked the question, I just I got total non-answer, which tells me that they're not sure either. Yeah, so
nobody knows.
Well, the other issue you have with those is it has a modern receiver with a modern sear and a modern hammer system. Yeah, so it does meet definitions under this new legislation, as it's not considered a primitive arm anymore.
No.
Right.
And just because people want to say, well, I don't think that the police may or may not prosecute something or jam somebody up over it. It doesn't matter. If the law says X, a district attorney wants to prosecute you for X,
guess what?
The police have no say in it whatsoever.
Yeah, you're going to jail. And that's like we say it over and over. Like every time you come on here since the law passed, we have to say something to the effect that, it's Goal's job to do these things in as conservative a manner as possible to keep people out of jail. Because, the great Jeff Strider always says you can't count on, you can't count on the government being cool.
Don't bet your life on don't bet your freedom on the police being cool about it.
Yeah. So, you have to do that. You have to take these things conservatively. And, and people want to say, oh, stop it. You're being an old fuddy and you're, all these things. But you're right. The law actually says this. And,
it's not
where you have to start from.
I don't mean it as a dig at law enforcement either. But if the law says, this is the punishment for doing that action, what are you supposed to say?
What are you going to do? Yep.
Yeah. No, law enforcement, to some extent, I feel bad for them because at one point during the board meeting, I had 2 state troopers sitting next to me, and one of them's about to retire. And, they said, because the board asked them, hey, could you ask these questions? And they're like, folks, we have no idea what to do with this thing. We haven't been given any guidance on enforcement. We haven't been given any instructions on what we're supposed to do. And he pointed to me and he goes, and Jim here, people he represents, it's totally unfair. Because if we don't understand what this thing is and what we're supposed to do and don't do, how are they supposed to understand how they're going to comply? And the black powder thing came up again because the ammunition, which we've talked about, because they removed the ammunition piece that, basically said, if you're a prohibited person, you can have a muzzleloader and you can have the ammunition therefore.
The exemption part.
The exemption, and they took that away. And now they're saying, oh, no, because there's a federal exemption.
No.
And even our board member, John Pajak, who used to be an environmental police officer, did a write-up about it. And, once again, we're back to the purple zebra laying on its left side during a hailstorm on a Friday in a leap year that, we think, and it's like, well, you took it away for a reason. What was the reason you took it away? And unlike a lot of other states, and this came up at the board meeting, Massachusetts legislature does not submit a letter of intent with legislation that they pass, which other states, it has to be a very detailed letter of intent to tell the general public and law enforcement and everybody else, what is it you actually meant to do?
Yeah.
And in this case, the letter of intent, if it existed, would have been very short. F to a community.
Yeah, right. We want to screw over gun owners. Signed the legislature. Yeah.
Signed the legislature. So, this is going to be a long haul on that board, especially since we only meet once a month for 2 hours. So it's going to be an awful long haul. And it really irks me too, because again, it's a state building that we meet in.
Yeah.
So you have to go through security.
Oh.
You can't carry pepper spray or even a pocket knife. And even after you get through security, somebody from that department has to come down and escort you up to where your meeting is.
Wow.
And it's like,
it really says, a government of the people, doesn't it?
Yeah. Welcome.
Yeah, it's almost like they don't want you to walk around and see what's actually going on.
Yeah.
No attention behind the curtain.
Right. So it's going to be a long haul. It's going to be an interesting thing to watch. And by the way, I'll try to think of it ahead of time before the next meeting in January. People can watch online.
Oh,
and they're certainly welcome. The public's welcome to attend as well, but they're always going to be like at 10 o'clock on a Friday. So
yeah, right.
It's very difficult. I'm going to try to get them to get out of Boston and maybe have a meeting at a club somewhere. But under the new laws, they have to be able to hook up to the internet and allow the public to view. And you know
what though, that a lot of places can do that.
Yes, they can
meet at the goal office.
Yes, they could. Yeah,
we got a nice room that would be perfect for that.
We can set it all up for you.
So they're subject to the open meeting law, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, which even in my the open meeting law has gotten so bad that literally 2 board members can't even have a conversation about subject matters unless it's a meeting.
Right.
How do you ever get anything done?
We're like standing at adjacent urinals and they're like, I can't say it. I can't.
No, we can't talk about it. I mean, there's no way you get anything done.
Yeah.
So the long gun situation in the end, it was like an act of desperation. They just appointed a 3-person committee to try to figure it out. It's like, all right, we'll see you guys in 5-10 years,
Yeah, right. So, lots of luck.
But yeah, so that's pretty much what's going on there.
Oh man. So it's as we expected and as we all predicted when this stupidity started, the pieces are still falling, and every time a piece falls, things just get worse and more confusing. It's just
absolutely. Well, the other thing too that happened at the board meeting was, at one point, we asked the state attorney, to read Chapter 140, Section 131 3/4, which is the enacting law, I guess, or the enabling law for the board. And it sounds like a Harry Potter train station, but which it might as well be for everything that's going to happen that isn't weird.
Just run at the wall as fast as.
That's right. That's right. Pretty much the way you got to treat this thing.
I mean, that'll make the headache go away for a little while.
But when because the initial rosters, it said for sale. And as he's reading it, 3 and 4 of us turned our heads and said, well, can you read that one back? And he kind of put his head down like, I don't want to. Nobody had caught it before, because now it says sale and use. What does that mean? So
what the hell does that mean?
One word that changes the whole dynamic of the whole roster system is use. And one of the board members said, oh, no, that's just about retailers. No,
that's not. Retailers aren't using these things. Yeah.
No, it doesn't say use by retailers. No. So does that mean that if a gun is not on the roster, we can possess it, but we can't use it? Because possession wasn't in there. It just said sale and use. So, now, ever since 98, we have told people about the handgun roster. Listen, that's only what the retailer is restricted in what they can sell, not what you can possess and use. Did they just change that? And it appears they did.
Kind of sounds that way.
But, again, because there's no letter of intent, and we even discussed, hey, can we go back to the legislature and ask them? But both I and the judge said, who are you going to ask?
Yeah, right.
You're going to ask Mike Day?
Yeah. He's going to say it's a perfect piece of legislation and it says exactly what we intended it to say. Have a nice day.
Yeah. And it's only about ghost guns and live fire. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So we don't have a clue as to what that means, but I'm not even going to give any advice on it. I'm just going to, you know what, folks? And when this thing was passed, even though we have done our very best to try to get information out there, and God, John Green is out there probably 2-3 nights a week teaching at least what we think we know on this stuff. I just tell people, listen, do whatever you think you need to do. If they want you, they got you. You know, Attorney Dan Hagan a long time ago under this, he tells us, well, okay, what's your risk tolerance?
Yeah,
you know,
right.
What are you willing to risk? And that is a sad thing for a lawful citizen to have to sit down and figure out. It's like, hey, I've been doing this now for 40, 50 years. Yeah. Am I risking, criminal charges?
My livelihood? Am I going to lose my life? Am I going to be? Yeah, it's. This is no way to write legislation.
No, it's. So anyway, it's we got a long ways to go, both at Goal and certainly at the board, because they just got started. And, I think things will get interesting as we move along.
So I guess the old laws say you guys had to meet like 4 times a year or something like that, but you guys are meeting more often than that now. I hope to work.
Well, I think at least initially they're going to meet every month.
Yeah.
I think we planned the next January, February, March meetings already. So we'll, I assume, get what the chair is trying to do. She's basically trying to take, one subject piece, or at least maybe 2 per meeting, because you can't do any more than that. And as we found out in the first meeting, you can't even do that.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very, very interesting. And there was just some general comments about the so-called new registration system. And the question was asked, well, have you gotten the funding for that? And it was like, well, motion to adjourn. We all got to go now.
Yeah. So. Sorry, can't. No comment.
Well, so I have to ask, Jim, so looking at the Firearm Control Advisory Board, by title, it does sound, and this is also not trusting the state of Massachusetts and its legislature, but it does sound like the purpose of this group is to advise the state government on how to implement more firearms control. And I think a question that we'll probably get from members or just people in the Second Amendment community, does Goal's participation on this board imply that Goal is assisting the state to implement gun control? And what would be our response to that question?
Well, I mean, I would say it's pretty much like pre-COVID, when we used to be able to work with the State House and prevent countless things from actually happening that would have otherwise taken place.
Yeah.
It is imperative that we are there to point out things like, you can't put up a partial banned roster because you're jeopardizing people. And, if we can make even the most basic things functional for the average gun owner, it's pertinent that we are there. Otherwise, and I'll give you a case in point, this was way back when we got the target roster passed, and they were developing the regulations for how to develop that target roster, what would be the requirements. And the Attorney General got up and said, well, their representative got up and said, okay, but we demand that any functional design equivalent of a non-target gun cannot be considered a target gun. And I stood up and said, okay, then just stop, because there's no such thing. And the AG's people looked at me like, well, what do you mean? I said, a gun is a gun. I don't care if it's a break open, lever action. I know these are handguns, but semi-auto, revolver, tilt, you name it.
Yeah,
they're all the same. It's just one is the target gun and one is, an everyday use gun. And it's things like that that would have just destroyed that work that we had done to get that roster established. And, and I know people will still say, well, yeah, but just stop all the nonsense and fix this. Well, I got to tell you, folks.
That's what we're working on. Got a lot of money invested in trying to do just that.
It's interesting that, I even had a Zoom meeting with a bunch of NRA people around the country. And, one of them from Iowa, we were voting on State Association of the Year. And one of the guys says, well, we have to judge by the policy changes they've been able to make. And I said, well, we're out. I says, come work in Massachusetts and judge yourself by that,
Yeah. We're trying to apply tourniquets here.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes right around the neck. But, we say all the time, we're hamstrung only because of the Second Amendment community.
Yeah.
650,000 gun owners. We still only have 21,000 members. Come on, folks. We're in the fight of our lives here. And yet still people have an excuse. Well, you're not doing anything. You weren't able to stop this,
Yeah.
Right.
I'll send a check after you put a stop to this law.
Yeah. It's like sending a squad of Army guys to defend a fortress against 2.5 million.
Yeah.
It's not the way this works.
Yeah.
But we do the best we can with what we have and who's going to, help out and take part. So that's what we do.
There you go.
And any opportunity to be there at a table, even if it's just to say, it's important to be there, even just to stop things as we continue to fight a defensive battle. And when enough of folks wake up, which I can't believe they still haven't, then we can go offense. But until then, it is what it is.
Hey, before we let you go, you guys have the drawing coming up for
Thursday.
20?
Yeah, the Thursday. 19th.
Oh, so it's actually gonna happen before this episode, the day before this episode airs.
Yes.
Lucky 20 will have been drawn.
Cool. So hopefully people can listen to this show on their way to the office to pick up their new gun.
Right? Pick up their new stuff.
I'll tell you guys a funny story. It has nothing to do with this, but just a funny story for the show. I had to go do some banking business for Gold. So I'm walking into a video bank and I see a guy, you're looking through the glass door and there's a guy at the counter inside and he's turned backwards and he's got a leash, right? And the leash, and there's the bank manager all dressed in black and she's squatted down. And I don't see a dog. I just see a leash leading to the bank manager who's squatting down. And I come through the door and go, what the hell's going on in the bank I'm doing business with? I didn't see the black pug she was holding. And it's like, and everybody in the bank just started howling, laughing.
Oh, geez.
I'm like, what the hell is about to go on here?
This day and age, you have no idea.
You just don't even know.
Nope.
All right.
Not at all.
All right.
Okay, kids.
Jim Wallace, Executive Director, Gun Owners Action League. As always, thank you for making the time for us. We really appreciate you coming in.
All right, guys. Sounds good.
All right, Jim.
Jim, see you Thursday. Thank you.
See ya.
So, you have an anti-gun dictionary update.
Oh boy. I hesitate to say credit where credit is due. The anti-gun community certainly gets creative in their bumper stickers and in their ability to just make up nonsensical terms. So there's a new anti-gun term floating around in certain circles: deceptively colored firearms.
Deceptively colored firearms.
Mm-hmm. So there is a Senate bill in Michigan. And granted, it's not, it's not Massachusetts, it's state level,
et cetera. Yeah.
Proposed in the Senate, but this came across the radar. There was an article on it, about it on Bearing Arms. But Michigan Senate Bill number 1134, introduced by Michigan State Senator Dana Polhanke, says an individual shall not sell, purchase, transfer, own, possess, carry, transport a deceptively colored firearm, nor shall they modify or attempt to modify a firearm to make it a deceptively colored firearm.
What the hell does that mean? What does that mean?
So that means, this is how they define it. A deceptively colored firearm is a firearm of which a substantial portion of the exterior surface is any color other than black, brown, dark gray, dark green, silver, steel, or nickel.
You got to be kidding me.
So your gold-plated Desert Eagle is apparently deceptively colored.
Now we want to write laws about in demanding what color your guns can be.
I swear to God, this is a real bill that's got proposed.
How does this comport with the anti-gun thing, saying we're not interested in hurting gun owners, we just want to get dangerous guns off our street?
Those scary black rifles.
Yeah.
Now
it's apparently the purple ones that are a problem.
And there are some firearms out there like Smith & Wesson makes them, Charter Arms, Taurus, Ruger, that make firearms that have purple frames and pink frames.
Well, yeah.
I have a Glock slide that's Tiffany blue.
Tiffany blue.
Why?
Tiffany
because you could. Because I can.
Why the hell not? Yeah, right.
But one of the things this bill does, and this is what I think is kind of, I don't think it's really going to go anywhere because of this provision. But it says, nor shall any person sell, purchase, transfer, own, possess, or carry or transport a deceptive coloring product. And this means, and they go on to define it.
Own spray paint?
A product that is intended to be used alone or in combination with another product to modify a firearm to make it a deceptively colored firearm.
Oh, my God.
So that effectively bans paint, spray paint, airbrushes, powder coating. Color case hardened firearms would be banned under this. You would not be able to own anything for powder coating, Cerakote. I would go so far as to say you would not be able to own a sandblaster.
So it makes me like start believing the tinfoil hat people, that say things like, the anti-gun groups like sit in a room and like somebody comes up with Post-it notes. All right, let's do color. Bam. Who's going to do color? Michigan, you get color. California, you do microstamping. Hawaii, you do the spirit of aloha. One of these things is going to, all these ridiculous strategies to get guns basically banned from law-abiding people. And then, what sticks? See what sticks. This has that feeling of like desperation. Let's get anything.
This is like so far out of left field. Now, I have seen some really
in
creative,
more than one way.
firearm paint jobs and designs. And, I saw one once.
The camo thing, all that stuff. Yeah.
All Muddy Girl stuff would be banned.
Yep.
That's no bueno now, if this bill goes into place. But I've seen someone where, someone took a pistol and made it look like remember the Nintendo gun?
Oh, the Nintendo thing. Yeah. That was
silly
funny
stuff.
as hell. Yeah.
Deceptively colored firearms.
Oh, Michigan. Never change. Yikes. I think cops are going to have to carry Pantone color wheels in their cars with them. Like how they... Remember how they used to have to carry tint guns with them to see how tinted your window is? Right, they're going to have to hold up color swatches to your Glock slide to see if it's an appropriate color. All right, before we sign off, this is, like I said before, this is our last episode of the year. The next time you hear from us will be on January the 3rd. To everybody listening in, just no matter how you celebrate, have a great holiday, prosperous new year.
2025.
Good, happy holiday. 2025 right around the corner.
We'll see what happens with the ATF.
Stay safe. Enjoy the holidays with your family. And we will see you in the new year.
That's it for today. Thanks for listening in. Be sure to subscribe to the Goal Podcast, to check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Goal Podcast MA, on YouTube at The Goal Podcast, or on Twitter at Goal Update.
To join Goal, visit goal.org and click the Join Renew button right on the top of the homepage.
If you have a topic you think we should cover, if there's something going on in your club or town, or if you have a question for the mailbag, shoot us an email at goalpodcast@goal.org.
The Goal Podcast is a production of Gun Owners Action League of Massachusetts. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of Goal, its staff, or affiliates.